I want to hit on yesterday. We're at the PGA show. You're
Yeah.
presenting
Yeah.
this topic, okay? And you were like, getting up there. I know you were nervous for it, but just to
I
let
was
you
a
guys know,
nervous wreck.
she crushed it. It was amazing. You would have never known she sweated it at all. She crushed it out of the park. But this topic was to help, not just, it was about women, and it's about our chest and boobs and like how to swing around them, with them,
Yeah.
what to do. And it was great, and this is more geared to the guys. Like, how do they
Yeah.
teach the women? And so tell us about that, and kind of what what advice do you have to other male instructors? I know we hit on it, but for
Yeah.
those who weren't able to listen or hear that, if you want to give a
Yeah.
couple of notes from that class.
Say boobs a lot. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
She was like, I'm gonna say it, guys. Boobs.
Yeah, it definitely got a lot of attention, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
The advice that I have is to be very for because I know that it gets really uncomfortable, right? For males to teach females. Um,
Well, there's stuff in the way.
yeah, and the first and foremost thing is just to be able to have a little bit more empathy, right?
Mhm.
Because you just don't know. Now,
Right.
I joke around, and we had a couple people after the talk where they were like, "Well, I'm a man and I have boobs, right?"
Yeah.
Or "I'm a man and I have a belly,
The
right?"
fact that he raised his
I
hand
know,
and said
I
that,
know.
that guy's got a
He's
lot of,
he's
that's
confident.
courage.
He
Yeah.
was confident, right?
Yeah.
So it
It
I
turned into man boobs and big bellies.
yeah, boobs and bellies, I think was what somebody suggested for my next talk. And
That'll
yeah.
blow up YouTube
Yeah.
for sure.
So the empathy part of it first, I think is really important. Second, just being honest and genuine,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And don't make it any more awkward
Yeah.
than it has to be.
Have you had a have you done this where it was awkward? Like, you've overheard a male instructor teaching a female and you're like, oh God, that was.
Well, okay, so I've had male instructors ask me, right? Like,
Oh,
how do
what do I
what
do
do
you
I
do?
do, right?
Yeah.
How do you word things? I've also had husbands ask me about how to, or like sons. They'll be like,
Okay.
how do I help my mom? All right.
So awkward.
I know it is awkward,
Yeah.
but it shouldn't be. It's
Right.
it's body
It's
parts,
body.
right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be any more awkward than it has to be.
Right.
So if it is awkward, most likely
Yeah.
you're making it awkward,
Right.
right? Not the student.
Right.
So that's usually what I tell them.
Yeah. Well, if they're coming to you, I mean, kudos to them. Like,
Yeah,
that's
for
that's
sure.
hard to ask.
For
I
sure.
would imagine. But
Yeah.
so what advice? Like, what do you want to put out there? I don't know if you want to give it all away, but what advice would you have to the guys who are trying to teach their moms, their sisters, their whatever it is, their wives?
Yeah. So I would say if you are going to teach your whoever it might be that's female, just make sure that the posture is neutral, right? As neutral as possible.
So what does that mean? They might not know
Yeah,
what that
yeah. So when you're setting up to the ball and over.
means.
Okay, so over
This.
when your arms are over the chest, right? That kind of curves out your shoulders, and then you
You
end up
cannot
kind of like
turn, by the way.
with a hunch, correct? And that will also tuck your pelvis inward, right under.
Right.
And it kind of sets you up like you're sitting on a chair, right? Sometimes, dare I say, you look like you're straddling, like you're like
Yeah.
on a horse, right?
It feels uncomfortable.
And it feels uncomfortable. So then people will also try under, where they're taking both of their arms and they're both going underneath. And what that does is it kind of lifts up the upper half of your back.
You can't turn.
And then you can't turn. You end up with what we call an S curve, meaning your lower back is really
it's
arched.
arching. Yep.
Yeah, and we don't want that either. Because from a biomechanics standpoint, right, you're locked out and you're going to end up early extending, right?
Yeah.
And you can't turn, right? That's a big thing.
I feel it sitting down. I cannot turn.
Right.
Very
So
restricted.
the idea is to try to neutralize all of that, meaning there's going to be some sort of squeezing or hugging, right, with both arms to a certain extent. And I like to set up my students, especially beginners, to close up their shoulders a little bit. So that gives you an opportunity to take that lead arm and kind of diagonally set it across the top of the boob, right?
Mhm.
And not like completely on top, but kind of
Yeah.
top side somewhere. And then the bottom, the right arm or the trail arm is going to be diagonally under the trail boob.
Right.
And so now you're positioned in a way where you do have a little bit of spine angle, right?
Yep.
And then your shoulder line is going to be ever so slightly close to the target.
Yeah.
That's how I like to start them.
Yeah, you can feel, and obviously, I know that from being a player. Like, we weren't taught that, but
Mhm.
just kind of we're able to experiment and like,
Yeah.
okay, that feels better. My arm there, that feels better there. But
Yeah.
the other ways, you literally can't turn. So.
Right. And I actually got a question from a male instructor after the talk last night, and he asked me, "Well, what do you do with somebody that has a really big chest? Do you still approach it the same way?" And the answer is yes. You
Yeah.
always want to just you're going to adjust it, right, as an instructor,
Yeah.
based off of the discretion of
Yeah.
what you feel like is
Yeah.
correct, and then you will kind of take a look at their posture.
Yeah.
And then when you have them turn, they have to look like they're turning freely,
Right.
right? If they are uncomfortable or they feel really restricted, that's when you make your move to
Yeah.
adjust. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that plays a part too. Then as you get to past the turn, like positions in the backswing, there's certain. Obviously, everybody has different body types and different structurally their swing. But
Yeah.
you'll start seeing like maybe a little flatter swing might work for somebody.
For sure.
The
For
the
sure.
lifting gets a little.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's definitely
things in the
not
way.
it's definitely not cookie cutter, right?
No.
It's like and we're not if you think about it, right, we're not trying to teach a tour player.
Right.
They're not trying to go out there and play golf for a living. We're trying to teach people how to get into the game and stick with the game.
Yeah.
So whatever is the most repetitive is
Right.
going to be important. Whatever is the safest is going to be important. And whatever makes them feel less self-conscious
Right.
is going to be important.
Yeah, the average golfer, I mean, they just want to have fun
For
and
sure.
stuff out there. And so, if you're helping them improve, and there's studies on this, like as soon as a player's breaking 100,
Mhm.
their passion for the game just
Yeah.
skyrockets. And
That's
so
great.
you're just trying to create passionate golfers who kind of stay out there. So there's not necessarily one way to do it, but
Yeah.
a little advice like this, I'm sure, goes a long way. So thanks for sharing.